welcome back to the Co-Parent Diaries. It's Monday and I'm filming on a Monday again because Friday I was way too emotional to record this, and I had to get myself together because I was actually off to one of my closest friends here in Australia's wedding and I needed to be the best I could be. And this was a topic that wasn't sitting too well with me to share in a way that I found constructive or in a grounded way. What I want to talk about today is the process of divorce and finally getting divorced after separation. Now, this isn't necessarily co-parenting content, but something that's really appropriate right now for my life and where I'm at. And on Friday, I started to do a TikTok video, and that TikTok video was actually 20 minutes long because I could not stop crying. I could not bring myself to speak on it fully. It was so raw still, it was so real. I was just going through so many emotions and I couldn't work it out. So here we are. Here it is. If you've watched my TikTok video already, you'll know I shared a little bit and I managed to get it down to about 6-7 minutes. And the feedback has been actually really positive, and I really wasn't sure whether I'd share what I wanted to share on there because so much judgment comes to women who are divorced, women in separation, more than men. There is just still this men are men will do what they do. But there's still this shame and stigma around women. And particularly, I feel when I go online, when there's stuff talking about divorce and separation, it's so negative and it's so nasty. And actually a lot of the content that women share are how to divorce from a narcissist and how to get over my abusive ex-partner and all that kind of stuff, which is obviously a horrible situation to be in. But I wasn't coming from that place. I didn't divorce a narcissist. I didn't divorce an abuser. My ex-husband, pretty nice guy, pretty decent guy. We just didn't work out. He just decided that he wanted to pursue a different life and that was not with me in it. And for so long when I separated, right in those early stages, and because I work online, I obviously spend a lot of time online, all I was seeing was negative. And I thought, gosh, how am I ever going to share about what I'm going through without it being so negative? And I couldn't process it and I couldn't work it out. And it goes the same with parenting and single mum content. I got a lot of that. I wasn't really getting co-parenting content at the time because, to be honest, I didn't even know what it was or what it was about, because I never looked at that kind of content because it's not a life I thought I'd ever have to live. So when I decided to share about my divorce on TikTok and the grieving and the process that I was going through, I was doing it because I'm sure there's a pocket of the internet that aren't having divorce parties, that aren't burning their wedding dress, that aren't turning it black. They're not holding some kind of funeral for their marriage. They're actually genuinely upset and they're actually genuinely grieving still about this. So on Thursday at 1 a.m, I got an email from WA Courts to say that my divorce had finalised, done and dusted. And it was exactly 1 month and 1 day from our hearing date, which we didn't have to attend, but I just had to book it. And I remember it was the 15th of September, and I guess a judge and whoever else sits in court reads our paperwork and says whether we should or shouldn't get divorced. And I was grateful that it was actually quite a smooth process. It was simply, I filled out a form online. I got some paperwork to sign. He got some paperwork to sign. He actually came to my house. We signed it together. My next door neighbour was able to witness it. And I paid $1,200 and there it was, done. Book, wait and see you later. And I had been told by my partner who did his divorce that it takes 1 month and 1 day to come through as long as everything went okay. So the paperwork came in, I woke up on Thursday morning and I had forgotten. But there was definitely this cloud over me last week and I couldn't work out why. And obviously energetically it was because that was coming. And I woke up on Thursday morning and the first thing I do when I get up is check WhatsApp. WhatsApp is how all my family communicate back home, and just it's the first thing I do every morning just to make sure everyone's okay, nothing major has happened, and it hasn't. The second thing I do is my emails, and yes, I do this before I get out of bed. I check my emails, and most of the time I just delete loads of stuff, and it's just in order for me to then start the day with just important stuff in there. And it said Courts of WA, and I was like, oh shit, that's come in. And I opened it, and it's literally just this piece of paper that I did have to read quite a bit to work out what it was saying. It doesn't say, congratulations, you have passed. But it said that we are now officially divorced, and that they were happy with the arrangements that we have already organised for our 2 children, and no further, they wouldn't take any further action or anything like that. And happy days. And I was like, oh, I am now divorced. And even though I knew it was coming, far out did it hit me. It hit me hard. And I was like, I'm divorced. Oh, I am divorced. Oh, I'm an ex-wife now. He's my ex-husband. I am divorced. And it was weird. It was so weird. And I couldn't work it out. I'm getting emotional now thinking about it, because it's still heavy. I can just talk better today. It was heavy. I knew it was coming, but it was so final, but it was so cold. Here you go, $1,200, a bit of paper, and that legal contract is now ended. And how weird. Our relationship was over so long ago, not 2 years ago, but we were still legally tied to each other. It's strange. If you think about it, it's strange. And then if I think what it took to get married, years of putting effort into a relationship and building a relationship, and the amount of money we put into our wedding day, everybody who celebrated it with us, and that it all feels like it was just undone. And part of me for a little while was like, God, wow, what a waste of time that was. And obviously it wasn't, because we have 2 beautiful children out of it, and we do still have a friendship, but it was weird. It was weird. And a few people had said to me, are you going to celebrate your divorce? What are you doing to celebrate? Should we go out for a drink? And I just thought, there's absolutely no celebrating that I'm doing here. In my eyes, even though I wasn't the one to leave the marriage, and I was like, let's go get help, let's go see a marriage counsellor, I was so sideswiped and so taken aback by his, I don't love you anymore, I don't want to be with you, because I had no idea. And I know people are like, oh, obviously. I was like, no, I thought we were just in the housemate stage because we were stressed and we'd moved country and we had young kids and we weren't getting any time and we had no support. I had no idea. So I wanted to go straight into, well, let's work on this. Let's rebuild our relationship. Let's start again. Let's date each other. He was like, nah, I'm out of here. And so for me, it felt like a failure. I felt like I didn't even have a chance to try and work out if it could work. He didn't even give me an opportunity to see if we could rebuild our relationship. Here's just, see you later, I'm gone. And now 2 years on, I realise it is what it is. There were a few signs, I guess, but still in my mind, you didn't fight. You didn't communicate at all. There was no respect shown there, and you just went. And I felt abandoned, replaced. I felt used. And now, over the 2 years, I've done so much work on myself and so much healing. And there's still there's so much of a way to go for it not to feel painful anymore. I don't know how long it takes, but I mean, it's not as painful as it was 2 years ago, so I must be getting there. But getting that divorce and being like, wow, now I'm not your wife. And now I don't share the same surname as my children. And even though I'm not his wife, but I'm now your ex-wife. Great, I have the label of ex-wife. And even with that comes a lot of shame. I feel a lot of shame around that. I feel a lot of shame getting divorced. I feel like a failure. And I feel shame around not sharing the same name as my kids, because I feel like then everybody else gets to see. When I fill out paperwork for me and my kids, it's like, oh, they've not got the same surname, they must be divorced, or oh, they're not married. Do you know what I mean? And then I think, who cares what other people think? They're just not important. Who cares? But clearly I do. I still care about it. And I was this person who, I couldn't understand people who were like, oh, I just would never not want to have the same name as my kids. Because I was just like, who gives a shit? It's just a name. Who cares? Why would that care? Why would you care about that? Why would that bother you? Obviously, I didn't get it because I shared the same name as my kids. And now I don't. And now I care. And now I'm in that boat. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you know what? That's because it's not my choice. If I chose not to have the same name as them, get it. But I don't have the same name as my kids. And okay, yes, I'm choosing not to keep my married name. But I'm like, why would I? I'm not married anymore. That's not me. That's not who I am. I also always felt like the name, my married name, was this persona that I had. It took me a couple of years to even get used to the name. And by the time it was a couple of years to get used to the name, I became a mum and I became someone who was drowning in life, burnout, identity, the lot. So I feel like most of the time that I've had my married name, I was living this fight or flight, I don't even know who I am anymore identity. So for me, why would I want to keep that? I don't want to keep that. I don't want that identity. So going back to my maiden name, which is Lucy Parker, feels like I didn't live that life. I feel like I'm back at school. Me and my ex got together when we were 21 years old. We were still so young. We didn't get married at that time, but the identity of being that person's partner started from when I was 21 up until I was 34. And that's a long time. It's of my adult life. All of my adult life, really. And so I feel like my name now is what I was as a child. So now I'm like, oh, I'm back to 18-year-old me. But I'm not 18-year-old me anymore. 18-year-old me was absolutely fearless, wild, sociable, outspoken, party girl, smart. You wouldn't have known I had ADHD, sort of. My attention span was much better. I didn't care what anyone thought. I just lived life. I was so brave. I had the anxiety. What was that? 36-year-old me couldn't be more opposite to 18-year-old me. And so I'm like, well, I'm not that either. And then I think, it's just a bloody name, Luce. Get over it. It's just a name. But your name is your identity. And so now I feel like I'm in an identity crisis. I don't even know who I am anymore. And I'm still grieving so heavily and trying to unlearn an old life and trying to break free from an old life because I'm still doing the patterns of an old life that I feel like it's going to take me a while to get that identity. So that feels heavy. That feels like a lot. Another thing I feel is like I've been removed from a family that I was married into. And it might be because I lived with his mum for 18 months, nearly 2 years when we were in the UK, and his brother. So I was really part of the family. And I had been really part of the family sort of from day one anyway. I was close with his siblings, close with his mum. I still am close with his mum. I still talk to her often, and I talk to his brother often. And I know that they're not going to cut me off. But I feel like because now I don't share their name and I'm divorced from the family, that I'm no longer part of that. But then it's weird because then I'm like, well, I'll go back to my family. Hold on a minute. My mum remarried in that process. She doesn't have the same name as me. She's not a Parker anymore. And it's like, where the hell do I fit? Where am I now? Obviously, I have my own family and my 2 girls, but I don't have them full time. So it's like, oh, it's really odd. And I think as well, I feel like that abandonment wound and that rejection wound has just cracked back open again, which had only really been patched together. Definitely not healed, definitely not glued. It was like some band-aids were just on that one. And I think, oh, one day there's going to be a new Mrs. whatever my married name was. You're going to remarry and Someone else has taken that place, and I definitely still have that wound of I was replaced by someone else, and I will be replaced in the family. And again, then I feel really shit for feeling that, because I shouldn't care about that. I shouldn't feel that, but I do. And it's definitely cracked stuff open. When I applied for the divorce, I think I managed to get the paperwork done a couple of months ago, and then we had to wait a month for the court date and then another month for it to come through. It cracked open some wounds then, some wounds, and I was angry. I was angry when I filed for divorce. And I went for a breathing session with my coach, and that was heavy, that was deep. It was amazing, and I let go of stuff. But it's still there, it still feels heavy. So I'm not going to be celebrating my divorce. I'm not going to be burning my wedding dress. My wedding dress is still at my in-laws' house in England, to be honest. I'm not having a party. I'm not going for drinks. I am grieving the life I once had and thought I'd have forever. The life that I had poured so much into and felt like I was just cut and left. And grieving an identity that, even though I didn't feel comfortable in it, it was the identity I was given. It was the identity I had when I became a mum. And now I am in a space of like, who the hell am I? And how long is it going to take until I find myself? So I guess it's also a little bit of an unknown. So I wanted to share this episode because maybe some people can resonate, but also because this is just good damn therapy for me. This podcast is becoming my therapy couch, I think. Welcome. As always, thank you so much for listening. If you think this episode would resonate with anybody, I would love it if you could share with them, ask them to listen. Reach out to me on social media at Abundantly Lucy, on Instagram or TikTok. Let me know your thoughts. And I am now going to go and breathe and ground myself before I go and pick up my kids from school and spend the evening with them. Thanks, guys.